Imagine for a moment that everything you've ever been told about religion, spirituality, and the nature of existence is a carefully constructed veil, a veil meant to keep you from glimpsing a deeper hidden truth. What if I told you that there are ancient texts, scriptures once revered but deliberately hidden, that contain revelation so powerful, so disruptive, they threaten to unravel the very fabric of religious institutions? One of these texts is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. But before you dismiss this as just another story of a forgotten relic, let me take you deeper into the pages of a narrative that dares to redefine our understanding of salvation, sin, and the divine. Close your eyes and imagine being in the 1st century, a time brimming with fervent beliefs and mysticism. The stories of Jesus had begun to ripple through towns and villages, gathering followers and challengers alike. Amidst this whirlwind, there was Mary Magdalene, a woman often mischaracterized as merely a sinner, misunderstood through centuries of bias and erasure. But what if I told you she was more? Not just a follower, but a bearer of secrets so transformative they could alter not just the trajectory of early Christianity, but our perception of spirituality today. Are you ready to peel back the layers of time and see what was meant to stay hidden? Mary Magdalene. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene isn't just an old parchment unearthed from the sands of time. It's a beacon of insight into what the early teachings of Jesus truly conveyed. This gospel was found in fragments, buried, as if nature herself conspired to protect its delicate truths. And in these fragmented pages, a narrative unfolds that puts Mary not in the role of a mere bystander, but as a pivotal figure, the one who truly understood the essence of Jesus' teachings. Imagine a story where sin is not the dark cloud that hovers over humanity, constantly reminding us of our inherent unworthiness. Picture a teaching where the emphasis is not on guilt but on knowledge, on awakening. That's what this gospel teaches. In it, Jesus speaks not of eternal damnation, but of an ignorance that chains us to suffering. The early church, with its hunger for power and control, would never have allowed such a message to stand unchallenged. This gospel suggested that the key to salvation wasn't blind faith or adherence to a structured system, but an inward journey, a revelation that the power to transcend lies within us. This was the essence of what Mary knew, and it terrified those who sought to establish authority. Her insight placed her at odds with those who clung to hierarchical structures. Think about it. If salvation came through personal understanding and not through intermediaries, the power dynamics shift. The role of the church becomes unnecessary, its grip loosened, its authority questioned. And this was unacceptable to those determined to consolidate their hold over the spiritual landscape. The lost teachings that threatened an empire. But let's go back to where it all began. When archaeologists in the late 19th century uncovered these lost gospels in Egypt, they discovered something extraordinary. In the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, Jesus does not reprimand her or reduce her to a secondary role. Instead, he shares with her profound teachings that reach beyond the tangible and into the essence of existence itself. He speaks of the material world as an illusion, a transient experience that masks the greater truth of our being. Can you see why this was such a threat? If sin doesn't exist in the way the church has proclaimed for centuries, then the foundations of religious guilt begin to crumble. Imagine living without that weight on your conscience, without being told that you must seek forgiveness through ordained channels to cleanse yourself. Imagine being taught that your journey is uniquely yours to discover, and that the divine spark resides within you, waiting to be illuminated through knowledge and self-realization. This is precisely what Mary Magdalene's gospel dared to suggest. Her account didn't hinge on sin as a manipulative force, nor did it perpetuate the cycle of judgment and fear. Instead, it called on believers to rise above the limitations of the physical realm and to recognize the divine in themselves. It spoke to a form of salvation that was deeply personal, an intimate communion with a higher truth that didn't need priests, altars, or even the looming threat of damnation to justify its importance. Consider for a moment what this means. If Mary Magdalene, a woman dismissed by so many as a marginal figure, truly grasped these teachings, then the entire story shifts. She becomes not just a disciple but a leader, one who was entrusted with the wisdom that others struggled to accept. This isn't just about reshaping her image. It's about understanding that the message she carried was a challenge to the entire framework of early Christianity. The power of knowledge over fear. Now think of the implications. If sin is not the obstacle but rather ignorance, the unawareness of our true nature, then the path to spiritual freedom is paved with understanding. This teaching stands in stark contrast to centuries of religious doctrine built on the notion of sin as the core human flaw. For the early church, wielding the concept of sin as a tool was effective. It established a structure where salvation was conditional, offered only through the gates they guarded. But the Gospel of Mary Magdalene opens a different path. It tells of a Jesus who, rather than positioning himself as an unreachable deity, acts as a guide, showing the way not through rituals but through direct insight into the divine. And it is Mary who comprehends this in a way the other disciples do not. In the pages of her Gospel there is tension as Peter and others question her authority. How could she, a woman, be the recipient of such profound knowledge? How could she lead where they were uncertain? These doubts weren't just personal grievances, they symbolized the broader struggle of accepting a shift in power. The male-dominated structures of the time weren't ready for the idea that true spiritual leadership could come from a woman who spoke not of rules and dogmas, but of liberation through personal revelation. Yet Mary stood resolute. She knew that Jesus' teachings were about empowerment, not obedience. He spoke of transcending fear, understanding that the material world, the world of limitations, suffering, and mortality, was not all there was. There was something beyond, something eternal, and it was within reach for those willing to seek it. So, as you listen to this, ask yourself, what if this gospel, hidden for so long, holds a key not just to understanding history, but to reclaiming a forgotten part of ourselves? What if its message isn't just about challenging religious authorities of the past, but about breaking free from the shackles that still bind us today? The story of Mary Magdalene is not merely a footnote. It is a call to look beyond what we've been told and find the courage to seek our own truth. Breaking the illusion of the material world. Picture this. You wake up one day and realize that everything you thought you knew about life, about the world around you, was only a fraction of the truth. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene invites us to peel away the layers of what we consider real and reveals that the material world, everything we can touch, see, and measure, is only an illusion. This concept may sound abstract, but consider for a moment the advances in modern science, particularly in the realm of quantum physics, which echo these very teachings. The smallest particles of existence do not behave as we expect them to. They defy logic, appearing and disappearing, behaving as waves and particles at the same time. Reality, at its deepest level, is far more fluid and interconnected than we ever imagined. Mary Magdalene's Gospel speaks of this. In one of the recorded conversations, Jesus explains that the material world is not our true home, that it is simply a reflection, a shadow cast by a much greater unseen reality. He shares that what binds us to suffering isn't sin in the conventional sense, but ignorance, our inability to see beyond the veils that this world throws over our eyes. The implications of this are profound. If our pain and struggles stem from a limited perception, then understanding the true nature of reality could set us free. And that is the core of the message Mary was entrusted with. She understood that spiritual growth was not about adhering to external rules, but about nurturing an internal awakening. Salvation, as she learned from Jesus, was not a reward granted by a distant deity, but a process of remembering, of reconnecting with the divine spark within us. This idea was a seismic shift from the dogma that insisted on external mediators, priests, and rituals as the sole path to divine grace. A woman's place in spiritual leadership. Now let's talk about why this message and Mary's role in it was such a threat. In the early Christian world where patriarchy reigned supreme, a woman claiming spiritual authority was radical enough. But a woman carrying the purest understanding of Jesus' teachings, that was revolutionary. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene doesn't just present her as a passive follower, It elevates her as the one who truly grasped the depth of Jesus' words and who, after his death, carried his teachings forward. Imagine the scene. The disciples, grieving and unsure of their path forward, look to Mary for guidance. She speaks with the conviction of someone who had not only heard but truly internalized Jesus' teachings. And yet, despite her insight, there was resistance. Peter, emblematic of the male-dominated hierarchy that would shape the church, questioned her authority. He struggled with the idea that the deepest understanding of their master's words was given to Mary, a woman. This wasn't just about Mary or Peter. It was about the broader implications of what it meant for spiritual leadership. If salvation and divine insight were accessible to anyone who sought it, regardless of gender or social standing, the entire foundation of religious power structures would be shaken. The early church, built on a framework that placed men in positions of authority, could not accept that the wisdom to lead might reside outside their control. And so, this gospel, along with others that challenged these norms, was suppressed. But why does any of this matter today? Why should a lost gospel, hidden for centuries and ignored by mainstream religion, hold any significance in our modern world? The answer lies in what Mary's teachings offer us: liberation from the chains of external control and an invitation to explore the divine within. We live in a society where, despite our technological advancements and shifting cultural norms, control over thought and belief is as present as ever. Whether through institutions, media, or social constructs, there are still forces that seek to dictate how we view ourselves and our place in the world. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene cuts through these influences by reminding us that true spiritual knowledge doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. It is found in moments of deep introspection, in the silent spaces where we confront our fears, our doubts, and our longing for truth. The message she carried is one that says you are enough, that you hold within you the ability to connect with the divine without intermediaries or institutions dictating your path. It's a call to reclaim your spiritual agency and recognize that the boundaries placed on you are often illusions. This teaching resonates today not just as a spiritual principle, but as a challenge to how we live our lives. It asks us to question where we place our trust, how we define our worth, and who we allow to shape our beliefs. The early church may have buried this gospel out of fear that it would disrupt their authority, but its message persists, echoing through time, inviting us to see beyond the superficial and to step into a more empowered existence. What's truly fascinating is how this ancient wisdom intersects with modern discoveries. Quantum physics, with its revelations about the nature of reality, aligns in surprising ways with the teachings found in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. We now know that at the smallest scales, the universe behaves in ways that defy classical understanding. Particles are interconnected across distances, suggesting that everything is part of a vast unseen web. Mary's Gospel speaks of a similar concept, not in scientific terms but in spiritual ones. Jesus taught that the material world is not the entirety of existence and that there is a greater reality just beyond what we perceive. He spoke of transcending the limitations imposed by the physical world and connecting to a deeper truth. When quantum physicists speak of the observer effect, where the act of observing a particle changes its behavior, we are reminded that consciousness plays a role in shaping reality. This aligns with the spiritual teachings that suggest we are not mere bystanders in the universe but active participants. If we take these teachings seriously, they open up a new way of seeing the world. The power to shape our reality isn't limited to scientific theory or religious doctrine. It's a blend of both. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene bridges these worlds by suggesting that the true nature of existence isn't confined to what we can see or touch. It's about recognizing that we are connected to something far greater, and that within us lies the ability to tap into this boundless source. So, what does this mean for you? It means that the spiritual journey isn't about adhering to rules laid down by others. It's about embarking on a quest for personal understanding. The teachings of Mary Magdalene challenge us to go beyond surface-level beliefs and dive deep into the mysteries of who we are and why we are here. This isn't about rejecting religion or turning away from spiritual traditions. It's about questioning where true power lies and realizing that it doesn't come from external validation, but from an inner awakening. The early church feared this gospel because it suggested that no one needed their approval to reach the divine. It placed the keys to spiritual freedom back into the hands of the individual, breaking the chains of dependence. That idea was revolutionary then, and it remains revolutionary now. Imagine a world where people truly believed that they could access divine wisdom without the gatekeeping of institutions. What would that world look like? It would be a place where fear-based control loses its hold, where individuals embrace their capacity for spiritual growth, and where the idea of a divine hierarchy becomes obsolete. Mary Magdalene's role as the bearer of this wisdom is significant not just for what it reveals about her, but for what it suggests about us all. It tells us that spiritual insight is not exclusive, that it isn't bound by gender, status, or birthright. It's accessible to anyone willing to seek it, to anyone brave enough to challenge the illusions that keep us tethered to fear. Rediscovering a hidden truth. In rediscovering the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, we are not just uncovering a lost piece of history. We are reconnecting with a hidden truth that has always been within reach. It's a reminder that there is more to this life than the roles and labels we are given. The message that Mary carried is as relevant today as it was then. That salvation, freedom, and spiritual fulfillment are not found in external validation, but in the journey inward, in the recognition that we are, at our core, divine beings capable of profound transformation. So, as you consider this story, ask yourself, what truths have you been ignoring? What potential lies within you, waiting to be awakened? The Gospel of Mary Magdalene isn't just an ancient relic, it's an invitation. An invitation to see beyond the veil, to question the structures that hold you back, and to step into a life where the material world no longer limits you. It's a call to embrace your power, to seek knowledge, and to understand that the divine is not a distant concept, but a reality that pulses through every fiber of your being. Are you ready to break free from the illusion, to walk the path that Mary once walked, one that defies control and leads straight to the heart of spiritual truth? If you are, know that you are not alone. The journey is as old as time itself, and its echoes have been waiting for you to hear them. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time if you are still with me, and if you would like, please think about subscribing to our channel. You may then receive updates on new videos that will provide you with additional knowledge, manifestations, philosophy, and personal development ideas. Your thoughts and opinions regarding this video would be much appreciated. Your contribution stimulates our cosmic research, and we are incredibly appreciative of your being here. And never forget that we are always here for you and wish you the best possible life filled with success and happiness. I hope you have an amazing day. If you have watched until the end, please respond with MMM, Master Motivational Mindset, so we can connect.